Thank you. The gentlelady from North Carolina, Ms. Manning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us today and for your patience. Secretary Walsh, during your discussion with Representative Bonamici, you said that we need to address the issue of child care, and you also said that we need to address the issue of immigration. I'd like to ask you about both of these issues. So first, immigration. Let's step on that third rail together. We passed two great bills in the House on immigration, and we've been working on comprehensive immigration reform, which I believe is critically important because our immigration system is so out of date and it doesn't address the needs of our country. So can you elaborate on what you meant when you said we need to address immigration?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And when you talked about third rail, immigration should not be a third rail. When you think about in our country, folks that are here undocumented, creating a pathway to citizenship would help us with filling these jobs that are unfilled, because we quite honestly don't have enough people to fill these jobs. We also have students that come from other countries to get educated in America in our college universities. And when their time is done here, if they don't get a visa program, we kick them out. And you know, no other country in the world would do that. By educating people, they would keep them there. And every employer in business I've spoken to in America, or most I should say, big employers, big companies, are all like, we need immigration reform. So this should not be a Democrat-Republican issue. This should be an American economy issue. And I think we need to think about it. Rather than fool around every year on expanding H-2B visas and H-2A visas and kind of getting a couple workers in here temporarily, those industries, I get calls from Democrats and Republicans on the H-2B program all the time. And those industries that they're talking about are some of them a year-round industry, and they don't have workers in those industries for a whole bunch of reasons. Quite honestly, some people aren't going into those industries. So I think having comprehensive immigration reform with a good pathway, with it also dealing with the border, and President Biden has talked about that, that's the path forward.
Thank you so much. And in my district, I have talked to business leaders and business owners, from farmers to manufacturing companies to people who are looking for very high-skilled workers, and we cannot find enough workers. So I really appreciate your mentioning that issue and explaining so carefully what you meant by that. And my office is ready to work with you on those issues because we think they're so critically important. Now I want to turn to the child care issue. You mentioned in response to Representative McBath at one point that at one point during the pandemic, you were afraid we wouldn't be able to get women back into the workforce, and you said women are critical to our economy. And you discussed with Representative Bonamici the importance of addressing our inadequate child care system. And I know from talking with child care providers in my district, and particularly I remember a meeting I had with some Head Start managers in my district who said that there is a severe shortage of child care workers, in large part because the pay is so inadequate. In fact, many child care workers actually qualify for SNAP benefits, and they need these benefits to make ends meet, and that is absolutely unacceptable. Many of the workers also lack professional development opportunities that would allow them to increase their skills and develop a career path that would help them get into higher paid jobs. Can you talk about what the Department of Labor is doing to address this important issue?
Yeah, it's one of the issues that we're looking at when we talk about pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs and creating pathways into more industries. Childcare is one of them. The problem is also always going to be, until we come up with a better system, the salary for folks. And what happened during the pandemic, a lot of people left the industry, not because they wanted to, but because the industry wasn't there. It evaporated, it disappeared. And when the industry came back, a lot of those workers found better paying jobs because they were doing the job because they loved the job, not because they were getting paid in the job. And I think that, reevaluating, and we had to do a pre-pandemic, quite honestly, but reevaluating what childcare looks like in America and the cost on families, that President put forth a bill that I want to say any family that earns $150,000 jointly would pay no more than, or less, would pay no more than 7% of their salary to child care. That makes sense. So I think that if you talk to industry, business leaders, they'll all say child care is one of the biggest obstacles families have, and people have to get employees back into work.
And I assume you'd feel the same way about universal pre-K?
Yeah, I mean, as mayor of Boston, we brought universal pre-K into the city of Boston, and it was really the people that benefited from universal pre-K were low-income families that got their kids into school. And universal pre-kindergarten is, if you look at the studies of child development and brain development, you will find that families that have the means and middle-class income and two-parent structure, young people hear more words and they're more prepared for school. Families that don't have that, little kids that don't have that, they're not prepared. You have universal pre-kindergarten. Now we're preparing everyone. And the studies show that the success rate of graduating high school and onto college or some type of secondary education or even a program is so beneficial. And we saw it in Boston, we saw it in New York City, and where you have universal pre-kindergarten. Not everyone has to take advantage of it, but it's tremendously helpful. Forget the family, forget the businesses, for the little kids.
Thank you. My time has expired. I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you. The